What is this? Well, it was a 5-minute quickie. Now it's a longer podcast, I've noticed. What's it all about? Well, it's something I was listening to, as usual, that spurred me to think of something else, that spurred me then to add something else, and then got me thinking of how it could help other things. And it's all about if you could just stop and refresh, reset. So the overwhelm of the noise around us just disappears just for a bit, and you can reset your batteries, recharge, get a new focus, all of that. And it's all in about 20 odd minutes. Have a listen now.
Warning.
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 Warning. You are entering into the unplugged mind of Paul Cloughie. Too late. Personal Development Unplugged.
Hey, my friends, Paul here. And another conversation. Now, this is either a long 5-minute quickie or a very short, longer podcast. I don't know which it'll be. So whatever you're listening to, that's what it is. And what's it all about? Well, I want to have a little conversation, a little chat, just something that I was listening to. You know, I listen to so many podcasts, and I was in the gym and I was doing my stretching. So I decided to listen to a little bit of Tara Brach. She's a Buddhist meditation teacher. And I thought, what a wonderful thing to do as I'm stretching, I could listen to a little bit of that, just change my frame of mind. And it was working really well. And what I loved is I found out there's a real bit of commonality between what she was saying and what we were doing. And in fact, I'm finding this more and more. You've noticed on one or two of the episodes where I've seen or heard other people talking about stuff, and we're doing the similar thing, which gives me so much, well, not only just enthusiasm, but confidence that what we're discussing, sharing, teaching, or whatever you want to call it, I think we're in the right direction, and we're using some really sound processes and thoughts. And she called this thing starting afresh. And that's what got me. I thought, I wonder what that is. It's a lovely thing to do. I'll just listen while I'm stretching. It's called starting afresh. And that's why I've called this episode Reset. Refresh into the now, because it's like a refresh button. Or, sorry, not refresh, a reset button. Now, how did she talk about doing it? Because I thought it was close to what I was thinking, but then I wanted to add to it and then add to it again. So you can either do a little bit of how Tara Brach, and that's TaraBach, lovely podcast, by the way, and they're really good meditations and guided visualizations. So do check her out. But what did she do? She said, this starting afresh is a little bit like our stopping and pausing. Because she said, just stop and look around. And then she said, now listen. While you're looking around, just listen. And again, that's a wonderful break state, isn't it? If you've got a little bit of noise going on in your life, or there's a little bit of drama, or there's a little bit of, that thought that you have maybe is going round and round and round, and you need to stop it. This is a great pattern interrupt, we call it in NLP. So just to stop and pause. We've talked about this. And to look around. And if you do it in places like, in a little woodland walk, or on the grass or in the green, or with me, I do it on the beach tops. It's so lovely to do because there's so much to look at in wonder. And then when you really listen, well, that's when you start to hear the subtle differences of what's going on I call it like the real noise, the noise of the now, not the noise we call, which is the overwhelming, disrupting, taking your thoughts away noise. The news and all that stuff, and everyone talking about rubbish. But then I thought, that's really lovely. It's really lovely. But I can remember way back in, it's July 16, way back into FMQ 38. And it was called Experience the World Like Da Vinci. Because we took this one step further. We stopped and paused and we looked around. Just looking. And sometimes with that, you'd try to cover up your ears. So all you could do is keep in that one modality, that visual modality. And then you'd close your eyes, take the fingers from your ears and just listen. So the only modality was the auditory modality. But then we took it one step further in that and said, hey, what can you feel? So your eyes are closed, your fingers are now back over your ears. What can you feel? So what can you feel on the outside? Maybe you could feel the sun. Maybe it's raining, maybe. The wind. Maybe there's a little bit of temperature. Maybe your body's a little cool on one side, but a little warmer on the other. All sorts of things you could feel. And then, what can you feel on the inside? Now, when you do all of that, going through each modality, you are really coming back into the present. And if you wanted to, you can unblock your ears. You can open your eyes and still stay in that, well, it's a trance of a kind. You can have trance with eyes open because you're now fully present. And if you could do all three together, and this is the real weird part, if you could try to, I don't like the word try, if you could open up your vision to peripheral vision, whilst also hearing what you hear, whilst also feeling what you feel. Now that is blooming difficult, but you can get it. You can just about get it. All of a sudden, it's as if the world stops still. It's amazing. It's like I think in NLP terms, it used to be called the no mind state, because you're listening with all your senses, all the modalities, and you're in the moment. And that to me is when you then go, oh, I'm back again. You've stopped. You've refreshed. You've reset. You're back into the moment. But then I thought, what would happen if we took it even another step further than that? How can you do that, Cloughie? Well, I'm going to tell you, because this is what I try to do as much as I can anyway, when I'm on the cliff tops looking out to sea, or if I'm in, I don't know, like a little wooded area. It doesn't have to be a complete wood forest, but you get those little walks sometimes where there's a few trees and you get the dapple sunlight and a little bit of wind, and then you get the noise. So you get all those different things that are they're just going to overwhelm your senses with wonderful nature. But before you do it, you stop and you set your intention to center yourself, just to settle. So you would take a nice in-breath, maybe like this. You'd hold it. And then as you breathe out, you would just feel your breath getting closer to the center, wherever your center is. And you just breathe gently. Breathe a little slower than normal. Maybe you could breathe a little bit longer on your out-breath than your in-breath. And then when you're settled and centered, you make perfect footprints in the sand. How do you do that, Cloughie? I'll tell you now. Well, being centered that way in your body, you want to be centered and settled on the land, on this little Mother Earth. So, slightly bent knees, you'd begin to sway backwards and forwards just a little bit until you got smaller and smaller till you you just feel like you're totally balanced forward and back. And then maybe sideways or to an angle, just slightly, just keep moving around in maybe little circles to get smaller and smaller until you feel you're totally balanced. Then go through that process of looking, listening, and feeling in whichever way you do, whether you close your ears and just look and then your eyes close and you open your ears and then you feel, or you do all three at once, but build up to it. You will find, boom, it's just a wonderful way to refresh, to reset yourself, to be in the moment, to be present. And the thing is, this is a great thing to share because it's a great way to be. Because some of us, well, let's talk about time. Does time exist? Some people say it's a construct, but it isn't it? Because if you think the past is just memories, things that have happened in a previous now, and the future, well, aren't they just, or isn't it? When we think of the future, maybe that's just like a goal that we want to bring into the now when we get there, when that future becomes the now, and everything now becomes a part. It's confusing, isn't it? Especially if you think, if time is infinite, you're in the middle of time because it goes that way forever and the other way forever, past and future. Yet everyone before you also was in the center of time because the future went that way forever and the past went that way forever. And the people who come after you will always be in the center of time now. Now will always be in the center because it's infinite, which is just a weird concept. But it's a lovely thing to think about, isn't it? Being in the center of time. Only you and everyone else is in the center of time. But you see, so many people live in the past. And do you know what? The people who really live in the past very rarely talk up how good it... Well, sometimes they'll say it was always better in the past, and they know it wasn't. But they'll always say how bad it was sometimes. Because if you've got any sort of anxiety, if you've got any negative type of feelings, anything that was good is always a little bit not as good as it was. And anything that was bad was even worse. But if you're feeling good, I guess then the past was better than maybe even was. And the bad wasn't as bad. But when you just live in the past, you're living on things that have gone by. They're finished. They're done. They're over. It's a ship that sailed away into the past. Yet there's also people who just live in the future, isn't there? Now, I don't know, because see, when you live in the future, when this happens, then I'll do that. Or when I get to earn this much, then I'll do that. Or when the weather changes, or when this does, or when that does. They're always putting something into the future. But it's not concrete, is it? It's not scheduled. It's not, I think, when July the 4th comes and it's Paul's birthday, then I'm going to do something. You notice the way I slipped that in. But the thing is, it's always generally in a sliding time of the future, so it never really happens. And so if you're living in the past or living in the future, the thing is, even though you're in the middle of time, both of those have gone. The future hasn't happened, so that's gone. It's not there. And the past, well, it was just now that's gone. So maybe it's time to do this stopping, pausing, refreshing, resetting into the now to make sure you're back. Now, some people will tell you, and I think it's dead right, to help live in the present, to be mindful. To be mindful, using mindfulness, which is a little bit like when we stop and refresh. We're becoming supersonically mindful of what's happening right now. But if we could just strive to be a little bit more mindful of what's happening in our life or how we're behaving, how we're thinking. I mean, there's a lovely book that I've read and I'll be reading again called The 4 Agreements. And trying to live, and I say trying because striving is a better word, striving to live with the 4 agreements, being impeccable with your words. Not only listening to what you say on the outside, but being impeccable with your words on the inside, with that self-talk. That's something that when you do that, it's going to change. Every bit of your communication will change. Don't take anything personally. That is very nearly hardwired, isn't it? Into us, taking things personally. Why would you do that? Well, there's lots of intentions around that, but if we could let that go, big difference. Don't make assumptions. And we do that all the time, don't we? Make assumptions about people, about things, about us. Those old beliefs we have. And then always doing your best. And if you can always do do your best in being impeccable with your word, and do your best about not taking anything personally, and doing your best about not making assumptions, and then just doing your best about being your best, man, that would really bring you into the now, the present. You'd always be there, because you'd have to be mindful to do that, wouldn't you? Maybe you just have to do some meditation around that. You see, if we always live in the past or always living in the future, what could be the effect of that? Well, to me, they can lead to anxiety, fear. Think about you're frightened of things happening again in the future that happened in the past. Whoa, that's mixing them up, isn't it? So we have fear from the past, creating anxiety about the future. That's a double whammy, all for the wonderful intention of protecting you, which feels the most unsafest, uncomfortable thing to do. If only we use something else like stopping and pausing. But you think, what does that anxiety and fear, how does it come out? Well, you got FOMO, fear of missing out, imposter syndrome, post-traumatic stress disorder, panic, phobias, overwhelm. All because sometimes we're just not living in the now and looking at the data, looking at where we are, how we are, what we want to do, taking stock. All with one. See, if we got our unconscious mind to look at that positive intention and notice that it's not quite working, and find out ways how we can access in the now the most wonderful resource that we have. Maybe it's awareness. Maybe it's confidence. Maybe it's, could be anything. And it could be, as we talked about it before, it could be a recipe of emotions, thoughts, skills that really just work. I mean, I think sometimes just when we have this anxiety, when we have this fear of FOMO, imposter syndrome, post-traumatic stress disorder, and I know that's a biggie, that one, panic. Well, they're all biggie to the people who they affect. But sometimes if we can just stop, reset and refresh this way, it is an awesome pattern interruption and gives us a moment to breathe, to stop, to notice the wonders of the now. And also just tell your unconscious mind when you can stop and pause, to look, to listen, to feel. Be as one with nature, Mother Earth, or just wherever you are, even if you're in an office, just stopping, going inside just for a moment. And then notice when you have stopped and paused, and you have reset, you have refreshed. Control R. It's pretty comfortable. And you might just want to say to your unconscious mind, maybe this is where we start, as opposed to that anxiety and fear, because I can deal with the fear of missing out, starting from this place in the now, because then I can start to think about, is it really true? Where do these beliefs come from? Imposter syndrome, same thing, isn't it? PTSD, is this really helping? Is it working? Or is there a better way? What have I got to learn? Yeah, I know that's a simple way of looking at it. And for those who are troubled by it yet, it does take a little bit more deeper work, but it's so possible to get rid of it and that panic. I just hope this little pattern interrupt, taking from this little bit of calmness I got through stretching and listening to Tara Buck, got me thinking about what we do here and how you can add to it, and then how it affects us from the past to the future, and just say, we need these pattern interruptions. What would happen if you just did it anyway? Maybe just before you started a project, or you started a particular thing in the day. Maybe you did it just at lunchtime to get ready for the afternoon. Maybe you did it just as you finish work, so you reset, refresh for the evening. Maybe just before you see your partner, your children, your friends. Maybe whenever, every day. Wouldn't that be good? And how long does it take? Ooh, sometimes as long as 2 minutes. Anyway, have fun. If you want to go back to that FMQ, way back into FMQ 38, and I take you through a little bit of that, and you can go through it with me. If you want me to do it again, I'm more than happy to, because every time I do it, it'll be slightly different. And we can really maybe focus on things like FOMO, imposter, PTSD, panic, or anything else. Overwhelm. Let me know. Let me know what you thought of this. Where'd you do that? How'd you do that? Well, you email me personally at feedback@personaldevelopmentunplugged.com. And let's have a little conversation. Let's get things going in a way that we can really help each other. Being in the now. Because when it's now, well, that's a good time. Because when it's now and you've got nothing else to do, you could share this. Share this as a thought. If you share this and you vocalize it to other people, your friends, they'll get it, but you'll get it even deeper. Because you'll realize how much you know about it. You'll realize if there's anything you need to learn a little bit more about. But by just explaining it outside means you get to know it deeper. This is what's happening to me as I'm talking to you. I'm getting it deeper. When I wrote it out, I got it deeper. Then I got it deeper again. Yeah, I make notes of these, by the way. Doesn't seem it, but I do. So do let me know. Feedback@personaldevelopmentunplugged.com. Also, please share. It doesn't take too long. There's on the platform you're listening to, generally they have a share button. Just share it to as many people as you could. If you would, it will help grow the podcast. It will help change people's lives, and they'll think better of you. And you'll think better of you too, because it feels good to share. And remember, paulcloughonline.com/podcast. That's where you get 50 plus free hypnosis tracks. Or just go to paulcloughonline.com and you'll see the premium programs I have. Supreme Inner Confidence. That's an awesome program. And you get a good discount from it. PDU40. That's 40% off. Plus there's more if you actually join and listen to those hypnosis tracks. Anyway, no more of that. I tell you every time. I'll continue telling you every time. But enjoy. And I realise now this little 5-minute quickie has turned into a longer podcast. So if you thought it was a 5-minute quickie, well, it wasn't, was it? But hopefully you went in your mind too to notice what would it be like. Just stop for a moment. Pause. And think, what would it be like to be able to just reset, to interrupt the noise and refresh? Yeah, that was nice quiet, wasn't it? And there it was again. Okay. I'll see you later. Bye-bye now.
Warning, you are now leaving the unplugged mind of Paul Cloughie. It's time to fly on your own. Be brave, my friend.
Personal Development Unplugged.